My daughter looked me dead in the eyes and announced she was driving 2 states away. She was going to a funeral. Not just any funeral. Kelly's funeral. The exact same Kelly whose life my daughter completely and utterly destroyed. She wanted to play the grieving best friend after everything she did. I told her absolutely not. I said it was a genuinely terrible idea. You could have heard a pin drop in that kitchen. My daughter's face flushed red with absolute rage. She insisted she had every single right in the world to mourn her friend. She claimed she needed to be there to say goodbye. The delusion was breathtaking. I refused to let her rewrite history in her own head. I looked right back at her and didn't hold back. You do not have the right to mourn Kelly. Not after what you put her through. Not when Kelly despised you with every fiber of her being. You destroyed her entire life. You don't get to grieve her now. The words hung in the air between us like heavy glass. She didn't have a single coherent response to throw back. Instead, she just glared at me like I was her worst enemy. She turned on her heel and stormed out of the room. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. That was hours ago. Not a single word since. She has completely shut me out of her life over this. Now I am sitting here questioning every single thing. Should I just let her go make a fool of herself? Or do I owe it to Kelly's grieving family to warn them? Am I completely in the wrong for putting my foot down? Because if my daughter shows up at that funeral, it will start a war. And Kelly's family has already suffered enough. To truly understand why my daughter acted the way she did toward Kelly, you have to look back at the absolute wreckage of my first marriage. My ex-husband was a serial cheater. He lied, he snuck around, and he shattered our family over and over again. Our divorce was not just messy, it was an all-out nuclear war. My daughter had a front-row seat to the endless betrayal and deceit. She watched her mother cry at the kitchen table night after night. That kind of pain changes a growing child forever. By the time she was a teenager, she completely cut her father out of her life. She has not spoken a single word to him in over a decade. Which sounds strong, but it grew into something much darker. Her hatred of cheating evolved into an all-consuming phobia. Cheaters deserve to lose everything they have. That was her exact mantra, repeated like a dangerous religious dogma. She started viewing the entire world through the lens of infidelity. Every married couple she knew was just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. She became a self-appointed morality police. If a friend was 5 minutes late coming home, my daughter smelled blood. If a husband casually mentioned a female coworker, the interrogation began. She was always hunting for secrets that simply were not there. I tried warning her multiple times to dial back her intense paranoia. I told her that projecting her father's sins onto innocent people was wrong. She brushed me off every single time with absolute arrogance. She genuinely believed she was protecting women from monsters. In reality, she was just looking for a target to unleash her unresolved rage. And unfortunately for Kelly, she was the closest target in the room. They had been best friends since their school days through college. My daughter even stood right beside Kelly as a bridesmaid at her wedding. You would think that kind of lifelong bond would offer some immunity. You would think trust and history would outweigh irrational suspicions. You would be completely wrong, because when my daughter's trigger-happy paranoia took over, not even her best friend in the entire world was safe from her crosshairs. She was primed and ready to explode at the tiniest shadow of doubt, and all it took was one unfortunate dinner at a fancy restaurant. One quick glance across a crowded room to set the tragedy into motion. She convinced herself she had caught the ultimate betrayal red-handed. Without asking a single question or checking any basic facts first, she launched a campaign of harassment that completely destroyed Kelly's world. Her toxic obsession blinded her to the truth until it was too late, and now she expects everyone to forget all of that just because Kelly passed away. It makes my stomach turn just thinking about the sheer hypocrisy of it. That is the dark history behind her sudden, selfish desire to attend that funeral. To understand why my daughter has no business at that funeral, you need to know what she did 7 years ago. She became utterly consumed by paranoia. My ex-husband's cheating had deeply warped her mind, making her see infidelity everywhere she looked. Her best friend Kelly had just gotten married. My daughter was even a bridesmaid at the wedding. Then, one fateful afternoon, my daughter spotted Kelly at a fancy restaurant. Kelly was sitting closely with a handsome man. Instead of asking, she assumed the absolute worst. She didn't walk over. She didn't ask for an explanation. She just took photos from a distance. And that single moment of complete rashness unleashed an absolute monster. She launched a vicious online harassment campaign. My daughter stalked Kelly's social media accounts day and night. She messaged Kelly's husband with fabricated proof. She sent those restaurant photos to mutual friends. She posted screenshots in local community groups. She blew up Kelly's entire life with deliberate malice. Kelly's husband demanded an immediate divorce. He wouldn't listen to any explanation. The marriage dissolved in a matter of weeks. We live in a very tight-knit religious community. Scandal spreads like wildfire among the faithful. Kelly was completely ostracized by everyone. People crossed the street to avoid walking past her. Friends stopped answering her phone calls. Church members whispered behind her back. Her reputation was completely and utterly in ruins. Then, and only then, did my daughter discover the horrific truth. The handsome man at the restaurant wasn't a lover. He was Kelly's blood relative, an uncle visiting from out of town, a cousin she hadn't seen in over a decade. It was completely innocent from the very start. My daughter found out too late. The damage was already done. Kelly's life had already been burned to the ground. They had a monumental, explosive falling out. Kelly screamed at her through bitter tears. My daughter tried to offer a pathetic apology. Kelly blocked her on every single platform. And eventually, Kelly packed up and moved far away. She wanted nothing more to do with our town. Kelly despised my daughter with every fiber of her being. And her mother has never forgiven us either. That is the brutal reality of what my daughter caused. Then came the news that changed everything. Kelly passed away unexpectedly. My daughter found out through a random Facebook post scrolling on her phone. The funeral was scheduled for this weekend, 2 entire states away. Instead of feeling any remorse for what she had done, my daughter immediately packed a bag. She announced she was driving across state lines to attend the service. She genuinely believed she had the right to mourn her former best friend. I tried to reason with her one more time. You cannot go to that funeral. Kelly hated your guts. I reminded her how she tore Kelly's life apart over a baseless accusation. I reminded her about the online harassment, the ruined marriage, and the community ostracization. How could she possibly show her face to people who despised her? My daughter just scoffed and doubled down on her selfish narrative. We were sisters once. I have every right to say goodbye. Say completely blind to the sheer audacity of her own words. It was never about honoring Kelly. It was about soothing her own guilty conscience. She wanted to play the grieving best friend for an audience that knew the truth. When I told her she had zero right to mourn someone whose life she destroyed, she snapped. The argument escalated until she stormed out of the house. She hasn't spoken a single word to me since that night. Now I am sitting here dealing with an impossible dilemma. Kelly's mother already makes her hatred for my daughter known every time we cross paths. Imagine the absolute trauma of seeing my daughter walk into that funeral home. Imagine a grieving mother having to look at the very person who blew up her daughter's life. It would cause an explosive scene during the most vulnerable moment of their lives. They deserve to mourn in peace without my daughter making it about herself. On the other hand, if I reach out and warn Kelly's family, my daughter will never forgive me. It would completely shatter whatever fragile relationship we have left. She would call me a traitor for siding with the people who hate her. Yet I cannot shake the feeling that keeping quiet makes me complicit in her narcissism. Should I protect my daughter's secret travel plans and stay out of it? Or do I pick up the phone and warn Kelly's grieving mother before it is too late? Am I wrong for telling my daughter she has no right to be there? And am I the asshole if I break her trust to save a mourning family from further pain? I just need to know what the right thing to do is here. Because right now, my family is falling apart all over again. Tell me what you would do in my shoes. AITA?